it's better than if it was an abrupt meeting. There's certainly a lot to talk about. And in Mike Waltz and Secretary Rubio, you have serious thinkers who understand the ramifications of what the president and others have put out there. And so I'm hoping that this could be a sign that there are serious discussions underway, and recognizing that all parties involved are going to need to be able to state clearly what their bottom lines are. And it's particularly tough for Ukraine because all of the negotiating is literally going on their territory or about their territory and about their sovereignty, which puts an added burden on them, which I certainly hope that Secretary Rubio and Mike Waltz understand and appreciate why U.S. interests are so at play here in terms of protecting Ukrainian sovereignty.
Well, we do know this came up in the White House press briefing just a moment ago, as the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, says that the president has received positive briefs about the meeting so far today, and that they'll have a full readout later on. But Mara, to your point about Ukrainian territory being in question here, what Russia is going to be able to keep hold of versus what Ukraine may be able to claw back, how do you see the minerals deal that the U.S. still seems intent on signing with Ukraine factoring into that, knowing that where a lot of that material actually is in territory currently occupied by Russia? Does that actually give Ukraine some leverage via the United States?
Hard to say. I suspect that the United States has also been talking to Russia on the minerals topic, and it's understandable for any U.S. administration to recognize that the United States needs to do far better in building and protecting a resilient critical mineral supply chain. I don't happen to disagree. I don't happen to agree with how this administration has gone about making those claims or assertions, but I expect they're having conversations with both Russia and Ukraine. For Ukraine, what's most important, and President Zelensky's chief of staff has already stated that publicly, is the need for security guarantees from the United States with whatever Ukraine may put on the table, in addition to their openness on the critical mineral side.
There was talk of signing that deal at this meeting. Mara, is that your expectation?
I guess I would be surprised if a deal was signed at this meeting. Certainly, you've got the Ukrainian defense minister there and the foreign affairs minister. So maybe it's possible, but I wouldn't expect that coming out of a discussion like this, particularly because the Ukrainians still need to know where the Russians are and what the Russian bottom lines are here, and we've heard very little discussion of that publicly.
Well, one of the Russian bottom lines we understand, which goes back to the point you were just making about security guarantees, is that there will be no presence of NATO troops in Ukraine to keep the peace, which is something that France and the UK have offered, the so-called coalition of the willing. If it can't be the Europeans, Mara, who realistically could serve that peacekeeping role?
Well, I should say, and it is important that France and Britain have offered to do that. They also want to know the United States is there as a backup. So what the United States is willing to do and how is critically important. Russia has already shown time and again, frankly, that they will take all that they can take, and that their word means very little, that you have to, those on the opposite side need some backups of force, and they need the strength of the United States there to ensure that Russia complies. And that's why it's so important that the United States indicates some willingness on the security guarantee side, and also in supporting what France and the UK have put forward in terms of on-the-ground peacekeepers.
Does President Zelensky need to come back to Washington, sit down with Donald Trump, get back in the Oval, smiles on their faces, saying thank you and so forth, to get this back on track or to move the ball forward?
I would hope that for the United States and for this administration, our keen eye is on what how to best serve U.S. interests and how to best protect U.S. national security. And that shouldn't be by requiring a formula of magic words to the president of the United States to make him feel better. his job should be in looking out for U.S. interests writ large. And so getting the deal done that best serves U.S. interests should be through whatever route we can get that deal done. I hope that is part of what Mike Waltz and Marco Rubio are trying to figure out and assess in their negotiations, in their discussions now.
Well, do you think that President Trump, though, is of the belief that a stronger, better fortified Western Europe is actually in the U.S. interest, considering when we've heard him talk about European allies, frequently he's talking about that, yes, they have not spent enough on defense, but also that he views them as kind of economic adversaries in a sense, who have unfair trade relationships. He's threatening them with tariffs while all of this is going on, Mara.
Yeah. Listen, my concern about President Trump is that, at least in all of the public statements he's made thus far, he seems much more eager to cozy up to strongmen and other authoritarian leaders, and to work out deals with Russia and China, for example, while the rest of the world needs to just scramble around the margins. I don't think that's what serves the security interests of the United States, nor obviously the rest of the world. But that's my concern about him. So yes, that's completely consistent with the view that he doesn't recognize the importance of friends and allies and partnerships that the United States has worked so hard to cultivate and ensure over the last years. I hope that there are people around him who are trying to correct and adjust that view and work with him to have him understand the importance of these relationships.